It's the broadcast is live.
Hey, what's going on out there? Are you tiger cubs and kitties and whatever?
I've actually got a baby deer out in my backyard. Speaking of cubs,
I saw pictures of that. I love when you northern guys get your taste of wildlife in your yard. You guys,
this is the suburbs. I mean,
yeah,
this is not much wildlife here. This isn't the woods.
Yeah. I mean, 30 minutes down the road where I was, everybody saw me shooting my videos, and over the last years, out here in the country, it's really nothing. I was a quarter mile off of the Interstate 77, and it's, it was still in the mountains. I did the videos where I'm on the mountaintops. It was nothing to go out on your back deck because we're kind of like in the town. It was nothing to see a bear walking through. Here's some turkeys living on the other side of a little creek that was behind my place, a deer. I had skunks that kept trying to get in my house. So
we got skunks around here. We've got deer. I mean, it's amazing how many deer are around here, because this is the suburbs. This is pretty, there's a lot of houses in my county.
Yeah.
And I can remember one night, it was maybe a couple winters ago, coming home from somewhere in the dark about 8, 9 o'clock, and there were like 13 deer in my driveway and front yard, and I was just like, and I'd seen them around the neighborhood. Occasionally, like across the street from me is a schoolyard, so occasionally you'll see a bunch of deer gather in the lawn in the schoolyard. But I was just like, I count like 13 deer, and holy cow. But the last couple of years we've had baby deer, because I think we've got one of the only yards around here without a dog in it.
Yeah.
And the mother deer hides the baby deer during the daytime. That's what she does. I don't know if you know. It's all over Facebook usually, because people don't know it, because people see. And it happened this year. My neighbors came over. They were like, "Oh my goodness, there's a baby deer in your backyard. What are you doing?" Like, leave it there. The mother will come back at night.
Well, hiking around here, I've almost stepped on baby deer. And growing up, I always never understood why they had the white spots on them. If you see a baby deer, they have white spots.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I finally got my answer, because I was hiking, stopped to get some water, got off the trail a little bit, going to take some pictures, and almost stepped on one. And I realized those white dots on them is because the sun shines through the trees that they're hiding underneath, and it looks like little beams of sunshine. It was perfectly
camouflage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of those big nature tree hugging nuts, but I'm like, nature is amazing. I mean, you know what I mean? It's very, very peaceful, very smart. But my big story is where I knew I moved further out in the country. I didn't think that was possible in 2012. I had a house, rented a house, brick house. And there's videos going back in 2012. Everybody, anyway, but there was a apple tree in the yard and a wood porch. So a deer would go, instead of going around the yard with plenty of room, at 2 a.m, I would hear it on my porch stomping around. Sounded like 4 guys out there. So finally, I thought a bunch of dogs would come in my yard chasing the deer. Now, I never saw this before, because I didn't think what I'm about to tell you did this. I didn't know I'm not aware that they're traveling in packs. I never looked it up. So I think it's like dogs. And I open my porch. Okay, so I'm out there. I'm in my boxers, of all things, and it's 2 a.m. It's foggy, and I go out there acting like I was going to run off some dogs. I'm surrounded by about 8 coyotes, and out here, these are not the coyotes you see out in the Mojave Desert that are like 2 feet tall. These are muscle bound, have bounties on them by the farmers if you skin them. I mean, seriously, they probably come up to my waist and stuff. Wow. And they were like in a half circle, just like ready to take me. And I'm like backed up slowly. Like, I can't believe it was the longest 3 steps back into my house ever. I
like,
never
where's
saw
my Irish wolfhound?
That's what I mean. I'm like, I'd never ever. We knew we had coyotes. You never really saw them, because coyotes will actually run if you make noise. That's what gets me. But I never saw them in a pack like that. I was like, but there is a chance that wolves and coyotes can crossbreed, is what I've heard. And I don't think we have wolves around here, but something was going on that night. There must have been one hell of a deer they were tracking,
Yeah.
Oh, here we go, man. Dr. Silver Age. Here we go. Good to see him there. Deer, wild turkeys, possums, to come on by here. Yeah, I had to catch a couple groundhogs in the fall when we moved to this house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got groundhogs living around here, but they don't bother us mostly. They're out in the yard somewhere digging their holes.
I don't mind killing an animal, but it's if I'm going to eat it, and I haven't done that in years. I'm not going to sit here and try to act like that. I'm not going to act like but I do catch and release when I can. So
yeah, as long as they're not. I mean, like the groundhogs around here, they're not around the house, so it's cool.
Yeah, my deal is if you're not going to eat it, don't kill it unless it's something. Paulo Costa might have beat us here.
A crocodile
in wine country of Portugal this week turned out to be an otter.
That's a big otter.
Okay, fun fact about an otter that my fiance let me know in. She thinks she loves otters, thinks they're cute, and she did some reading up on them, and it turns out the male father otters will get the baby otters and bite their penis off.
Ah, isn't that nice?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just sort of like, wow.
So you want to see what comics I got this week?
Hey, you read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to ask. What you got? What you get, man?
I actually had nothing on my pull list, so I had to get all shelf stuff.
Well, before you get into that, did you see Marvel's books that they're going to do, that they're going to release? I don't know, next week. The blank covers.
Sale, you mean?
Yeah, the one they're like blank covers, and supposedly on the front of them it says on sale Wednesday.
Oh no, those I'm talking about. Check with your local comic shop because Marvel is having an omnibus clear out. Instead of, I guess, sending them to instead of clearing out some store, they gave a chance for comic shops to get them.
Can you get those online?
There's like 20 or 25 books. I actually ordered the king size Jack Kirby book, which is has a $200 retail, and they're going for $70, and they're even on like Amazon they were like $80 or $90. So I was like, you know what, I'll support my local comic shop and get one. That's the one. I think Sleepy Reader showed it once. It's an oversized Jack Kirby slipcover one. Plus they got tons of other stuff that I wasn't. But you can find them on the internet. The list of omnibuses for sale at comic shops, so you can put in an order with your LCS or whatever.
Nice.
That's good.
Okay, now I'll shut up.
Well, the first thing I got, this is something called Bitter Root, which I've never read before. This is issue 8, and I saw a few people on like Twitter and YouTube recommended it. So I'm like, I got nothing this week. I'll give it. And they always say it's by someone named Sanford Green. But it says here, it says creators David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, and Sanford Green. So I don't know who's doing what in this one, but it takes place during the Harlem Renaissance in like the 1920s. So some of it's in Georgia in this, and not just Harlem. And it's monster hunters. Someone compared it to the Goon. So I was like, all right, that and I in a monster hunting sort of way. And the art is kind of in that vein. It's got that sort of cartoon.
What's it called again?
Bitter Root.
Bitter Root.
So, and it was good.
Root. Okay.
I enjoyed it. I might put this one on my plate. This is like part 3 of a story. So I was just like, I'm one of those comics. When you grow up in the 70s, you just pick up anything. It's like, you picked up whatever was on the newsstand. So I'm not one of those people like, I got to find the first issue.
Okay, thanks to what's going on in Washington State, I've been on social media much more than I usually am, and I'm going to go on a limb and say it was your thread. I've seen 2-3 people post that just because of the cover, and I saw somebody that made my eyes roll because they were like, a couple years ago, they did a bunch of, I think it was DC, did a bunch of movie variants based on movie posters, and they had a Batgirl with.
Oh, rest. Yes, someone mentioned, right.
That was yours. Okay. Well, it blew my mind because I'm sure somebody corrected them, but just to let everybody know that's a Purple Rain Prince of
right. Someone thought it was a Batgirl, the homage to the Batgirl cover, and I was like, no, it's the Purple Rain one.
And if you want to go way back, okay, into the 80s, I don't know if it was Spectacular Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, but there was an annual, and there was two of them where they had a character named Ace. And it was we knew it was Prince in the 80s. I had those, and they were really bad comics, but I held on to them forever because I'm a Prince guy. I have no shame. I saw Prince when I was in 1979 on a bandstand. Never knew
Wow.
what he was going to become. I just like when he did an interview, he was just very shy and very artistic and gave 2-word answers to Dick Clark. I thought he was a nice, quiet guy.
La Raza says Sanford Green art on Bitterroot. So I guess he's the artist. I know his name, but I'm not familiar with anything.
Well, they did very well on that cover. So if I run across it, I'll pick it up just for the cover and hopefully, and I'm a Goon fan. So
yeah, I enjoyed it. Gore Vidal says, was it Bitterroot was nominated for an Eisner? Oh, yeah, I could see it. Like I said, it was really well done. It was good stuff.
Good. I don't know if that's the only, is that the only, has there been nominated? I guess there's more. What number was that you just showed?
This is number 8.
Okay.
I have no idea how often it comes out. I know I saw its name over the last few months, but I was like, yeah.
See, I love this when YouTubes get a vibe of their own on something. You know what I mean? Like, you'll find books on YouTube, like in the old days, that and they all have a vibe that you just don't hear about anywhere else. So
I found it. La Raza said, she liked the color on. I found the color a little funny in it at some time because the color is very moody. Yeah. And it's but I found it funny because, like I said, it takes place in Harlem in the 1920s. There's a lot of black people in it. There's some white people too, but it's like a lot of the time I couldn't tell the people's color because it's like, they made them red in this whole panel, and sometimes I'm like, is that a black guy or a white guy? I'm not sure because they're pink and blue. I mean, most of them are black people, but it's just funny because the color is so expressive. And sometimes I was there's a zombie in this who's yellow. So I just found that kind of funny as I was reading it.
Yeah. Now, personally, that's what took me out of Paper Girls right away. I don't like when they use those pastel layered out 2-3 colors a page or something. But I don't know if it's if it's purple. It
must be pastel. Some people just don't like a pastel color palette. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I picked up a copy of this, the Sumerian Red Nails, which is, I'm told it's French because Conan is in the public domain now in France.
Wow.
And they even, if you want to try and read this, they even print the text piece in the back and this tiny, that must be 4-point text. I don't know who can possibly read that.
It's called filler, my friend. It's filler.
It's public domain. But I liked the artwork on it. I thought it was pretty nice. But from what I'm told, and I suspected right away that it was originally printed in a European graphic album because it's France. So the art, I can always tell that when the art doesn't fit proportionally to the page. There's a lot of white space on the top and bottom. So it's like I would rather read this in the graphic. Yeah, Paolo, it is. I would rather read this in the graphic album format because it would fit the page better. It would be bigger and fit the page better. So as much it's well done, but when they squeeze these down to the American comic book format, I don't like it a lot.
Well, you know what? I'm going to have to go to Paulo's channel. He's done a video on that, and I'm subscribed to Paulo, and he's not showing up in my feed. So I'm going to be hitting the bell, much like you should do here, people. And for Paulo, go hit that bell. So now, Red Nails to me is my favorite Conan story. Like if there was ever something where it's perfect and it's everything a Conan story should be, Red Nails. I've got I'll probably have 4 or 5 versions of that story. It's collected in one of the phone books from Dark Horse. I've got the special they put out. I've got it. I've got the actual novella that they put in, and all that. Red Nails to me is the ultimate Conan story. Like it's
Red Sonja isn't actually in Red Nails.
Huh?
Red Sonja isn't actually in Red Nails.
I don't think it was Red Sonja in the book either. I've read the comic book version so much.
Did they have her in the comic? Wasn't?
Well, I think you gotta understand. Conan's got. Well, I mean, you read Conan. He's got several female characters. Man, you have Valeria. You have the pirate, the lady that the black.
Yes, Belit or Belit. I have no idea how to say her name. Yeah. She has some weird accent over that first or last vowel that always confused me as a kid.
Oh yeah, and it's it's Roy Thomas adapting it, Barry Windsor Smith art. And as a kid, I got hooked on it because the first thing that happens is they run across a dinosaur when he runs up on the girl. And when you're a kid, that's all you need is a dinosaur to suck you in.
Right. Pretty interesting dinosaur in this one. It didn't look like a T-Rex or anything. It looked like kind of a fantasy T-Rex.
Page 19. Sorry, guys, I can't do this.
He wants to check this. I have a vague memory of them putting Red Sonja in Red Nails, but I don't even know.
It's Valeria of the Red Brotherhood. It's Valeria.
Okay, there's Valeria in there because I know it wasn't in the original story, but they sometimes. And let's see, the other thing I got was a bit of a disappointment. It was Adventure Man #1, and this has got Matt Fraction and the Dodsons, Terry Dodson and Rachel Dodson, who I like that creative team. And it's 60 pages for $4. But I just found it dull.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I haven't. The Dobsons have not popped in my head, nor have I really paid any attention to anything they've done since Wonder Woman over a decade ago.
They've been doing. Matter of fact, they did. Speaking of European albums, Terry Dodson and Rachel Dodson, they did, I think, last year something called Red 1, which first came out in comic book format, only like 2 oversized issues. And then they put it in a European graphic album size about this big. And when I read it in the European graphic album size, I liked it so much better because the big nature, because his art is very kind of detail oriented. So it just worked so much better in the large size. I think because they tried to make this action oriented, because it was like the first scene was like a James Bond movie where they have this huge fight scene between these. And I have all these cool character designs in it. But I just barely pay attention to it. It was like there was no, I mean, look at the beautiful drawing. But it was just so chaotic, and there was just nothing that grabbed me. There's a dinosaur for you in their trophy room.
The coloring's killing that. I'm telling you, the coloring is what killed that.
You're right. The coloring is not very good at. The coloring is washed out and not very good at distinguishing the background. It's like, look at this. It was the storytelling, which look at this page right here. It's just chaos.
It doesn't even flow. They don't even have the characters.
No.
Yeah.
No, there's something. It's like it wasn't the drawing. I mean, the drawing's beautiful. The coloring wasn't terrible or anything, but the storytelling was just kind of chaos. I mean, these 2 pages are supposed to be chaos, but still, I was very disappointed when I read this and was just kind of like, because I wanted to really like it. I mean, it's a good deal. There's plenty of pages in there. I like Terry Dodson's art. I like Matt Fraction's writing. And then
I'm not a Matt Fraction fan. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. It's one thing to be a comic book writer and put out some books and have fans of it. And it's another thing when you're sort of like getting claimed to be like, accolades and stuff thrown at you and stuff. You're just sort of like, what are you talking about?
I pay no attention to those accolades. That's just Marvel. That's usually just Marvel and DC hype they hype since the 90s when all those artists left them, they've been hyping writers. So,
yeah. And
also he's one of those guys who, in general, I don't like their Marvel stuff and prefer their indie stuff if they're doing it, kind of thing. Like I liked when he did a book with Howard Chaykin a few years ago that I enjoyed. I can't think of what else he's done that I've liked at the moment. I actually read some of Iron Man that he did with Salvador LaRocca about like 15 years ago when I was still occasionally. Iron Fist was pretty good. That's back when I was still buying collected editions of things. I would occasionally pick up some of his stuff. They were both good, but nothing spectacular. But this was I cannot explain to you why this was so dull. They were trying real hard not to make it dull, but I found it dull.
Man.
And the last thing I got was I picked up Faithless 2, the erotic connecting cover. Watch out, nudity. Ooh, by Tula Lute.
That's
And I picked
art.
it up.
That's art.
Yeah, I picked it up just because I was like, oh, I can go with the Tula Lute cover. To put in my bought only for their covers section. I don't want any more because I'm not a fan of Brian Azzarello's writing in general because I don't, which actually what I'm not a fan of wasn't in this one, which was that he writes in slang so much. And I find it so distracting. Like, what's that one he did? Bullets. How many bullets was it?
100 bullets.
100 bullets. He writes in slang so much, this street slang that just doesn't resonate with me. But this he actually didn't. But this was more like a romance novel with graphic with nudity in it and sex, romance novel stuff. And it was just kind of like wasn't my thing.
I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but I've said it many times before over the years. Greg Rucka, Brian Azzarello, for a while there when he was writing Cops and Powers and stuff, Bendis, and there was a fourth one that's sort of gone away in obscurity. These guys came up and they're all doing sort of like crime comics and stuff. So they're like Ray Bradbury and Harlan Ellison. They kind of mix in my head. But Azzarello, if I'm remembering right here, is the one that's hit or miss for me. Like he'll write something. Azzarello's strength in 100 Bullets was why I found something like all of the graphic novels for $10 at a yard sale. I read first half of the first one and I felt like I needed to go take a shower.
I couldn't make it through the first graphic. So my friend gave me like 3 volumes of it, and I couldn't make it through the first one.
I gave it to my buddy Tim. I mean, it just wasn't my thing. But I mean, he was doing sort of what you were saying, that street thing and trying to
street slang, and it just doesn't ring. No. And I'm like, do people really talk like this? Is he making this up? I have no idea. Because what do I know about street slang? And occasionally, like some characters use street slang and stuff, and it might ring true to me, or it might not. But his street slang has never rang true to me. So
the book, I don't know if they were coming at the same time or when I discovered them the same time. So we're talking back issue buying here, not when they're actually coming out. But I would send people to go read Scalped instead of 100 Bullets. Scalped was by Jason Aaron, and it's on a Indian reservation, and it was very Thunderheart meets Law and Order meets some gritty crime, true detective thing. And I would read that book and I would taste the freaking dust, smell the soiled mattresses, smell the nasty horror. I mean, it was like, he put you in there. I never
Scalped grabbed me, but his Southern Bastards did. I don't know if you ever read that one. That one was with Jason Aaron and another Jason on art.
I might have the first 2 or 3 issues, but the only reason I picked that up is I didn't call it out because I knew the people they were coming from a good place, but I got stereotyped. They were like, "You would love it," the way I talked. They were like, "Oh, this book, you got this is for you. You will love it." I'm sitting here like, meth is not a thing, and for me, Oh my God! But it was fun.
Some Matt Fraction comments here. Looks like we have some people commenting on.
Yeah. We got some great people in there today. We got Larata, Paulo, Gore Vidal, Sleepy Reader has popped in here. Dr. Silver Age popping in is always a treat for me.
Gore Vidal says when he returned to comics in 2014, Fraction's Hawkeye was an early recommendation to me. I liked it and found it was extremely popular with millennials. I also like Satellite Sam. Yeah, Satellite Sam is the Chaykin one he was talking about.
And
I didn't like Hawkeye so much. Hawkeye was too indie comics light for me. I've always found I like slice of life comics a lot. But there are indie comics guys who do slice of life stuff full time. So when I see like a Marvel comic with them doing sort of slice of life superheroes, I'm like, this is lightweight stuff.
I'm probably going to get the band wrong, but I think I know what I'm talking about. you'll have a Kurt Cobain come out, and then all of a sudden every record company wants their own Kurt Cobain, and we end up with Silverchair. You know, you know what I mean? Like,
I like the David Aha covers and art in it, though. I mean, there was nothing wrong with that, but just it was just too indie comics light for me, Hawkeye. Yeah. Not that it was bad. It was just like, it's like indie comics for people who don't want to read indie comics. And I'm just kind of like, well,
I don't know who wrote Day Tripper, but I have the first issue. It looks like I need
to. Yeah, I read Day Tripper this past winter. I took it out of the library. It was, it didn't hit me as hard as it hit some. Who was it? Who's a big Ghost Critic? I think it was a big Day Tripper fan. He always talked about that one. He hasn't made videos in a while.
Yeah, he liked Morning Glories and Day Tripper.
Yeah, but I read Day Tripper and enjoyed it, but it wasn't a favorite. I think it was kind of weird too. In that, didn't that keep changing like timelines or something?
I don't know.
Not really timelines, but it was telling like variations on a theme story about this family. Yeah. And it wasn't quite, you'd find out halfway through that one of the family members was dead or something. And then he was not dead. And the next one, they were just going through that sad story of him. So it was a weird one, but I enjoyed it. If you guys read Casanova by Fraction, I think I read a little of that, but I read like 1 4-issue trade and it was okay, but I don't really remember. It didn't really grab me that much.
Does it let you share the comments if you click on it?
Let me see. I don't think it lets me share them.
Cool. Okay. Now we know.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do one last one here. Well, 2 of them here real quick. Fraction Hawkeye was like my door to the world of indie books, and understand that you have to wait a while for ending of a series. Bored at church. I can see that. You get a taste of something, then you kind of go back and anything that makes you go explore other comics. That's a plus.
To me, it's not bad in any way. It's just an indie comic for people who haven't read many indie comics. That's what it is. So if it gets you to look at indie comics, that's always a good thing.
Helped him deal with the grief of his father's death. Yeah, you get books like The Crow where people are I hate that I've had the insomnia, but it's cathartic for them. They throw themselves into the work and you get that emotion in there. Okay, that's if Day Tripper is something like that. Sometimes knowing the story behind the author of a work helps you understand the story better. That's the stuff I get into. What's going on with the author, what's going on in history. And sometimes you got those works that need to stand on their own. Right. And I'm gonna throw John Jones out here real quick. Kurt Cobain. There was a graphic novel based on Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain? I don't know that one.
Well, I popped on there. I saw that because on HBO or something like that, there's some Gus Van Sant movie that's supposed to be called Last Days that it's Kurt Cobain. I made it 15 minutes into it. I'm like, what is this crap? So it's kind of funny that's coming up. I got a few things. What happened was the great insomnia that people have heard me talk about for years popped up, and I didn't go to work, did a little sleeping, but then I've been trying to clear a room, get this room straight. So I got a bunch of stuff to take to a Goodwill about an hour away, and I popped into an antique shop. So it was amazing because I could smell the comics. I hadn't been there since February, and I'm like, I know there's stuff in here. You know what I mean? And I think I went 50 feet into the place, and somebody had set up 3 boxes of comics. And I don't know who this vendor is, but there's comics in here from the 80s that look like they come right off the rack. They still have creamy pages. Wow. You can still smell the ink. And I had a stack, and I put it down. So I got some other stuff. But before I show that, because of us talking a few weeks about Alan Moore, and I mentioned Vigilante stuff, I went to Ollie's, and this has been sitting there for like a year. I went ahead and got volume 1 of Vigilante by Marv Wolfman, and I read 2-3 pages of it. It's got the Teen Titans annual number 3, which is his first Vigilante appearance. He was a judge and popped up 3 or 4 times in the Teen Titans before he became Vigilante.
I vaguely remember reading maybe a handful of Vigilante issues in the 80s, but I have almost no memory of them.
But I'm a sucker for a really good 80s design with lots of black, like Halo. Yeah. And this guy, I know they're probably dated for some people, but I mean, I love dark blacks. That's why I'm a Bernie Wrightson fan. Mm-hmm. And all that stuff, man. You use a lot of black for some reason and a lot of ink in a comic. So all these books were like $1 a piece, and I got a few things that I don't know if they're worth anything or not, but I kind of recognize they might be variant covers. First one is The Spirit. I don't know what issue this is. It's from Dynamite, Eric Powell cover. This is a Virgin incentive. I kind of track Eric Powell's stuff a little bit. So that was kind of cool. And like I said, these are like brand new. That's probably a couple years old. Then I'm surprised to find this because I don't think it's worth a lot, but it's a sketch cover by Jim Lee of Harley.
These alternate covers are such a crapshoot to what is worth something and what isn't. It's just like, and they shoot up for a while, and then everybody who gets one wants one, so the rest no one wants. So it's crazy.
Well,
nice.
Yeah, my whole deal is, I think everybody knows. I mean, if I see a key book or something cheap, I'll grab it. Don't get me wrong. Right. There's no altruist motive here, but I got so many comic books, it's really got to catch my eye before I get it. You know what I mean?
And also, like when it comes to alternate covers, who knows what's a key alternate cover anymore because they come and go so quickly.
Well, I don't know if it's going to show up, and I don't know if you remember this, but back in the DC Blue Digest days, there was a one that I had as a kid where the DC superheroes were like little puffy babies floating around smiling. Well, I don't know if that's what Jim Lee did, but she's surrounded by a bunch of stuffed toys, and they look like those figures on there. They won't show up. There's a Green Lantern there, one that's kind of all beat up. And I'm sitting here. That's what caught my eye. I thought about those Blue Digest days, and I was like, I don't know. I had that. I don't know what happened to it. Now I grabbed this one because I had 2-3 versions of this. Right, there's the one that came out, and it had a first appearance. And the reason I got it is that this is the days where I was trying to tell people that Rob Liefeld, starting there at the in X-Force and stuff, he was doing New God, Fourth World characters by Kirby as designs. And supposedly there's supposed to be a movie or a TV show. I may still have the ones I had in the 90s, but I got Youngblood #2, which is the first appearance of Shadowhawk, and the Prophet. I mean, this could be one of the forever people. I mean, he's got Mark Moonrider's faceplate on, or what do you call it? I don't know. I think it's who it was. Mark Moonrider, But I just grabbed this because it was there for $1 and it's in better shape than the ones I've had. I bought them when they came out. And I think I've taken them out of the bag once, almost 30 years ago. So, for this to be in better shape than mine, I can't figure that out. Profit goes up and down. It got real popular when a guy named Stephen Platt got on the book.
Splat.
I'll go ahead and show this one. As I'm going through my comics and doing the cataloging, I'm finding books missing that I can't explain. And it's oddball stuff like Justice League of Europe #14. Captain Carrot number 17 or something. I've got oddball books that I had a complete set of, and they're just missing. I don't know.
Rex Mundi #3 is missing from my collection. When I just went to read them, it's like it must have got misfiled somewhere. And once that happens, it's like I'll never find it until I'm looking. If ever, if I'm looking through some other section, and all of a sudden it's there, I'll be like, oh. But I haven't. I was rereading my Rex Mundis, and that one wasn't there, so I was like, oh.
Well, when Brad, I mean, I'm a big Legion fan, and I was reading JSA in the 2000s by Jeff Johns, but Brad Meltzer started his Justice League run, and they had the JSA crossover with the Justice League of the return of the proper Legion of Superheroes. I know I had all those issues, and one's missing. I'm like, and it's the Power Girl cover. I can't figure it out. Now, a new Facebook group, if I can call it that, I've kind of been enjoying is the Art of Rick Leonardi.
Oh, okay.
Now, what's cool about finding this one, it's got a character named Mayhem. All right.
Oh, right.
Okay. This is her first appearance. Now, she's not going to blow up or anything. I can't see it. But I love it when they have those designs where you can go, that's from 1984. I like when you have like Angar the Screamer and you're like, that's from 1969. You know what I mean? I like when it's like, here's the epitome of a decade right there.
He screams and you go on an acid trip.
Yeah. I look at Angar the Screamer and I'm like, that's the age of Aquarius. Then I found out there was a character named Aquarius, and I'm like,
the Aquarian, wasn't he in Wondar? He was like Wondar, and then he became the Aquarian in Marvel 2-in-1 in like the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. Now, this book I've done several videos of, and I don't know which ones I've taken off or anything like that, but this is one of the things where this is in my top 10 of best written comic books, man. And, but I always pick this up. This is a book I give a home. This is Hero number 11, a standalone story where a caveman gets a hold of the hero dial and he looks up as they're nomadically wandering through the snow and mountains hunting for food. The hero dial just falls out of the sky. The series, if you read all 21, 22 issues, it'll explain what happened, how it got there. But this is just a standalone story where a caveman hits the dial and he turns into Super Caveman. He's killing mammoths with one finger. And to me, this is like a man story. This is symbolic of like when you take off from house or you get shunned by your family and you go out in the world. But he's a little bit more intelligent. He's feeding everybody, but all the women want him. And all the women get around him, and he just puts his arms around them. They go off into a cave. So the men kicked him out. And he's traveling the world. And he doesn't understand he can turn back. And he ends up like doing art with his finger, caveman art of everything he's seen. And it goes back and forth with Metropolis Museum because these archaeologists are finding his caves. And they're like, this guy's drawn in 3 dimensions 10,000 years before man knew how to do it and stuff. But it has to me, it was a very sad ending in a way where it just touches you. And it's like a silent issue. There's not a lot of talk in it. It's just a fantastic little
Hero number 11. Was that New 52 or?
No, this is 2004.
Pre-New 52, right?
Yeah, it's I think it's Will Pfeiffer, who to me, I'm like, I wish this guy had done more comics. I don't know what his day job is, but when Will Pfeiffer comes in, I can only think this is the only book off the top of my head I can think. He hasn't done a lot of work.
Yeah, I know his name. I don't know where. Maybe I know it from there because my friend used to collect that.
Yeah, but this is a book. This is probably anywhere between my 3rd and 6th copy because sometimes I'll give it. Sometimes people will get curious. I'll let them read it, and if they like it, I'm just like, just keep it. I mean, it's you can find it in dollar bins,
Right.
It's that's probably the most underrated book in my opinion. I mean, I don't want to hype it up.
I'm pretty sure no one knows it exists.
I've done a couple of videos on it, and that'll make people go out and buy it. Yeah, I'm not going to name off the people. Okay, where are we at here? Take a break.
Should we look at that? Let's see some comments.
Yeah, I've got just a few more here. I'll get through pretty quick. So, oh wait a minute, we got an aquarium. Of course, Paulo would know this. Look at this. Mark Grunwald did a weird story in a black and white mag with the aquarium set in the far future. They called him the prophet there.
Oh, I think I might have that. That sparks probably Bizarre Adventures or something like that. I don't remember. I was buying.
Now, I'll tell you what, I'll sit here and kind of make fun of that stuff, rib it a little bit, and all that stuff. But I'm the guy that'll pull out my hair album or my hair VHS and just sit back and dig it. You know what I mean? So I got to call myself out there.
Aboard at Church says, Who Shot Kurt Cobain is a graphic novel from IDW, I think. So I guess that might be the Kurt Cobain graphic novel that someone was asking about before. I didn't know they did that. Who shot? That must have been there was a book on that or something. Maybe it was based because IDW does so many licensed things. Who knows?
Well, I'm one of those people that, you know me. By now, I think, but when they supposedly found Kurt Cobain's journals and printed them as a book, I was like, no, I'm not reading his journals. You know what I mean? Those are supposed to be in private and stuff. So,
and then Davis Q says, I think the graphic novel is called Godspeed. Okay.
There's a couple things there. Real quick, we go back with more Legion books. Legion Lost is a 12-issue miniseries that is fantastic by DNA, Abnett and Lanning. Mm-hmm. I'm piecing this together. I've had 2-3 times I could have bought all 12 issues or I found a trade. There's just something better there. So I'm piecing this together. It's number 7. But this is like, even if you're not a Legion of Superheroes fan, this 12 issues, it's basically, 6 or 7 members of Legion of Superheroes get trapped across the other side of the galaxy. And it's them trying to get back home over, I think, the course of a year or something.
Abnett and Lanning always did nice stories.
Yeah, so seeing they took over the 2 Legion books. I think they ended them, did this, and this led into their Legion book proper. And the first issue they get home, and that first issue, or I don't know how they got home. And issue 12 supposedly shows that. But I've been piecing this together and kind of flipping through it. It's pretty good. I mean, even if you're not a Legion of Superheroes fan.
I wonder why they stopped writing together, because they were writing together for like 20 years or something.
I actually, again, social media. I looked up being at the right place at the right time just to see a comment. I can't remember which one it was, but the other one was like, basically one just wasn't helping writing. This was at the time. I don't know if anything's come out afterwards. One just was lazy. He said, I've been doing the real writing for 20 years anyway. I'll be fine.
Oh, okay. I think Abnett, I've seen writing stuff since then, but not Lanning.
Right.
I guess he
one did a social media post where they just said, I've been doing all the writing anyway. So
Paulo Costa wants to know, when a comic gets 50 variants, gets reprinted in a trade, do all 50 covers get reprinted? I don't think so. Occasionally you'll see a trade, like a cover gallery in the back where they put some in. But I've never seen. No, you know what I think what I would buy that would be a money maker for Marvel and DC? If they put out like one comic a month with all their variant covers in it. I mean, just like a comic full of variant covers for like, I don't know, $5-8, maybe 80 pages of covers. I would actually buy that.
Well, bouncing off of something we talked about last week and stuff, should they do the 3-hole punch thing, where you actually take it apart? Because people collect, we talked about it. There's some people out there just buy for the covers. It's like gigantic trading cards.
Yeah.
I mean,
that to me would be like free money for Marvel and DC. They should do that because.
Well, something I've always wanted to see and always kind of asked is that I can't believe there's not some company or maybe Marvel or some DC or something has a little thing where they just take some of the covers and make posters of them by order. Like you don't have to mass produce them, but you pay a
print on demand. They can do them now.
Yeah, do a gigantic poster print on demand.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Silver Age says it's got to be an Alex Ross or Neil Adams variant for me to think about getting it. Well, your name is Dr. Silver Age, so.
Think about Casanova and Godland. I think also a Fell, Fell. I don't know I haven't read Fell or anything like that, but I have, whoops. People are commenting quick, moving on me. I have all the Godland. We've talked about Godland. That's a highly recommended one. So they're putting Casanova, Godland, and this book Fell sort of in the same category.
If Fell was written by Warren Ellis, right? Was that?
I think
I read a trade of it, and it was okay, but I don't really remember it that much.
I heard he finally retired.
He finally what?
Retired from comics.
No,
I think
he's still
finally retired. Oh,
no, Warren Ellis has a weekly newsletter that I read. So he hasn't retired from. He just runs out of comic projects.
Yeah.
And then eventually gets like, I think he's still finishing up that Batman one. I think beyond that he's run out of comic projects.
Got it.
If he comes up with another one, he'll write it. But otherwise, he's busy writing TV stuff. I think he's got plenty of writing projects.
Castlevania on Netflix.
Right.
I think people are starting to recognize his name. That
people, I've never watched it. People love it. So.
Okay. I'm a Legion guy. Paulo Costa has the hardcover Legion Lost. Can't remember the Legion being put through the ringer like that anywhere else. And actually to me, that's a big part of the Legion is that when you realize these are teenage kids, they were having kids. They had death and body dismemberment in the 60s during the Silver Age with lightning and all that stuff. There's always been a little bit of a consequence of darkness with the Legion, and David and Abnett just kind of turned it up and put these great characters through hell. It took a toll on them, man.
LaRasa says she just read Enigma by Milligan and loved the story, plus felt perfect for a Vertigo title. I know I've seen that one, but I don't know if I've ever read it.
Your variant cover collection thing, would that reduce the collectability of variant covers? I don't think so. I think
I don't think so. I think there are so many covers that even reprinted. It's like I don't even think they could reprint every single cover in one book a month, let's say. Because even if they did like an 80-page giant full of covers, that doesn't cover all their covers. Marvel's publishing like 100 books a month, that doesn't count variant covers. So I think they could easily fill a 60 or 80 page book. But
Well, the other thing is that there's so many variant covers, guys like me, who don't have a comic book shop and stuff, they don't follow previews. You got to remember, people out there don't do previews. There's people who just, casually look for things, or they might order online. And if you order online, you're talking about going through every company on your computer, clicking. You put out a book like that, people become aware that there's more. Oh, that cover looks great. And they'll actually start looking for it. I spent something like 8 years tracking down an affordable copy of Jim Steranko's Rorschach cover he did for Before Watchmen. You just kind of keep it in the back of your head. May not buy it directly, but you'll see what's out there and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I have a Promethea covers book like that they put out through ABC. And I heard people flip through mine. I let them look at it, and there was covers they wanted to track down. There's one where they did an homage to Spider-Man, Superman from the 70s with and Tom Strong. A lot of people wanted that one.
I actually collect covers digitally. It's like, I just have like I can look at them on my iPad. I've got like every Wonder Woman cover from volume 1 in one file that I can look at. Like not the comic itself, because that would make it big and awkward, but just all the covers. And it's like I track down, like, I think Deja Thoris. I don't care about the Deja Thoris comic, but they've got some nice covers on it. It's like I just download them, the covers from wherever on the internet, and put them in one file. Like if I want to look through it, I can just look through that file. It's like,
well, I tell you, I've done the same thing. I've had computers over the years where it was nothing but files and files of covers, man. But we're going to be talking about Denny O'Neil later on. And when it comes to Wonder Woman covers, I love the guy who's doing the covers for Denny O'Neil's run. I think John Jones, is that his name? We talked about this guy before. He was his last name was Jones.
His name floated. Jeffrey Jones.
Jeffrey Jones. But there's a cover.
In fact, I haven't watched it yet, but I have a documentary on him because he became a woman, I think, later on in his life, and I think he had a sad life. And I've heard the documentary can be a little sad, so I haven't watched it.
He was married to Louise Simonson. You know that,
right?
That's why she was Louise Jones and stuff. So,
right in the early 70s, I think it was.
Yeah, you could actually have a direct line. Louise, what happened? What happened? No, but he has this one cover where Wonder Woman's like, kind of in chains up there.
With the executioner.
And the executioner's there. And I loved that cover. I mean,
that's a popular one.
Yeah. Let me get through these books. There's just a few more here. Not a great era of the Legion of Superheroes, but this is after 0 Hour, I think. And
that can describe quite a few eras of the Legion of Superheroes.
This is the Legion of Superheroes where you kind of wonder if they're the clones of the Legionnaires or if they were the Legion of Superheroes proper. There's a whole thing. But I flipped through this one, man. This book is really a little bit dumbed down a little bit. They try to write them as kids, but not kids. And I'm like, oh God.
David McKenzie tells us Ben Templesmith illustrated Fell. He was the artist on it. Okay, now I remember.
Sean McManus fan. This has Keith Giffen art. A bunch of them. It's an Omega Man annual.
I think I have that one.
Yeah.
The Omega Man was a disappointment to me when I was buying it way back when, because they were kind of a hot commodity in Teen Titans, and then they got their own series, and they were just kind of
So yeah, some people are better at supporting characters and guest stars, and then you dilute them. That's why I never really got on top of the Omega Men. I read a few of them here and there, but I won't end up having a complete series the way I'm going. I'm finding myself picking up an issue or two. I tracked down the Alan Moore backup stories, and that kind of got me a little bit curious what was going on. They had a character named Felicity, a white cat woman.
Okay.
You know what I mean? An alien who looks like a white cat. It reminded me of my Kiss days when I read that Marvel Super Special. I can go on through the dominoes that keep making me get Omega Men like that.
And who was the artist who was on Omega Man originally? I think he left quickly because they had a good artist like at the beginning of it, and then he left and it got mediocre. I can't remember who it was. And was it issue 7 that had Lobo's first appearance?
Number 3.
Number 3 it is? Okay. That's why, like, in any dollar bin, you'll see every issue of Omega Men but number 3. It's like
Yeah, and people started picking up where they couldn't get number 3. They started wanting number 9 and 10 and like number 19 and 20 or something. They started trying to get every Lobo appearance through Omega Man. Lobo was responsible for keeping Omega Man on the lips of people's names after 37 years of their own book. I think they were like in Green Lantern before that. More, I can go on and on. But they never really blew me away. But
Sleepy Reader says, was it Giffen on Omega Man? Maybe it was.
Yeah, Giffen was on. I don't know if he was the artist though. I know he did covers, and maybe he was. Whoever
was the original artist was kind of the best. Made Omega Man a little more exciting, and wasn't there for. It could have been because Giffen's not on anything for very long. So
I have to look this up, man. Good.
Now he's got to see. I know that. I'm trying to think of who it is too. I'm like,
If I don't find out, I'm not going to be able to talk about anything else because it's the background.
The Omega, because I had that Omega Man annual. I remember almost nothing about the Omega Man except they were like an outer space team of different aliens.
Oh yeah, they were fighting. I can see the aliens in my head. They were fighting the Citadel. I think that's what they were called. And it was your basic Star Wars. The influence were going to fight the Empire. But the thing but one of the things that people who are fans of Omega Man, for some reason, the one thing they always say is that like every character that was in the first issue is dead by the last issue and replaced with other Omega Man throughout there. I'm not going to be able to find it. Oh, I'll look later. I've got that. All right. Real quick to get through these here. Early Jim Lee art. I'm getting this run of Alpha Flight. I mean, I got a ton of Alpha Flight. If you were a kid and you like John Byrne, you got Alpha Flight. Right. But this is early Jim Lee. Alpha Flight was one of the first professional, if not the first professional book he was on. And this issue 64 cracks me up because it's like Jim Lee trying to do John Byrne. The Return of Tundra from issue 1 when I saw this cover.
I think I first noticed Jim Lee on the Punisher.
I think everybody did, to be honest.
I think that's where we all discovered Jim Lee.
I discovered Jim Lee in the advertisement for the Dream Queen. And was I buying his Punisher work and stuff? Probably was. But there was a full-page ad, and it was a cover of Alpha Flight where it's the Dream Queen. And I was like, that is striking. It's like a close-up on her face. She's got her tongue sticking out, green hair rolled back in a Scarlet Witch headpiece. And I'm like, it just stood out to me, man.
That I think he was the one who drew that classic jet ski Punisher cover.
Yeah. I know his Punisher Wolverine, when Wolverine popped up in the Punisher 2-part thing, I ended up selling that, picking it back up. That's a favorite of a lot of people who were actually buying the comic at the time. That was a big deal to be able to get that off the stand. It's when it had a better format and better paper in the 80s than other books. It just felt kind of cool to have it, And Jim Lee, to me, that's like the first Jim Lee art proper, where like he looked like he was professional. Does that make sense? You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. It's the one where it looked like he just jailed as an artist by memory,
You just rented your jet ski to the Punisher. You can kiss that baby goodbye.
Oh, man. Do I remember the Legion of Substitute Heroes?
Of course we do.
I can reach out there and get the special from the 80s. I love the subs.
How could you not love the sub? Yeah. First of all, there was that dumb Legion of Superhero rule where they couldn't have overlapping powers. That was always like.
I also liked what Jeff Johns ended up doing with them when he was bringing them back, like in Action Comics back in the late 2000s. It's like when the subs were involved, you knew you were in for a car wreck and a rescue, but they got it done. Like their whole idea of like, instead of being like covert and let's sneak somebody in here to infiltrate the group, they're like, we're going to steal this bus, the space bus, and we're going to go through the window. We got the element of surprise. Then you had Polar Boy, who was like, let's do it, guys. Trying to always round them up.
Davis Q tells us Keith Diffin did 6 Omega Men, then Todd Smith. Okay, that's what I knew. Whoever was the first artist was better, and then it got just pedestrian.
Well, here's the deal with Keith Giffen, and people can correct me if I'm thinking of the wrong person, and I probably am. But Keith Giffen, if you go back and look at like Cobra from the '70s and some stuff he did, Claw, the Unconquered, he actually had a more style that was a little bit reminiscent of George Perez in a way. Like it wasn't
I
as
remember.
smooth.
I remember him from doing a real Kirby riff in the '70s, like on Defenders.
Oh, he got big into it in the '80s. He pulled that Kirby riff at New Universe. He's pulled that Kirby riff with Legion. I got 4 or 5 books of him doing that Kirby.
And he got in trouble
Our
for
brand.
he got in trouble for swiping from who was it? An
French
Italian
artist, a European artist.
Italian artist who did Torpedo or what? He would take Munoz. It was Munoz, Jose Munoz. He would swipe entire sequences from Munoz.
Yeah, he got
the comic journal was always calling him out on it.
See,
Giffen did Kirby on the Defenders. Sleepy. That's where I first saw Giffen, was doing Kirby on the Defenders.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I first noticed Giffen through his Legion work. That's bound to be the way my work. But see, the word on the street in the '80s for people who, when we would talk and they would see old Keith Giffen work, I don't never knew if it was true. I met Keith Giffen a few years ago. I have a picture with him, but I should have asked him. But the word on the street was he got into a car wreck and it affected how he drew. I don't know if that was ever true. That might be an urban legend. I've forgotten.
I've never heard that, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've my friend Rob, who I've known since my one high school friend who I've been known since we usually meet at the comic shop every week, and he's been a Keith Giffen fan since forever, and he's always laughing when a new Keith Giffen series comes out because they always get canceled in 6 to 9 issues. So it's like, here's another Keith Giffen series. Like, I'm going to pick it up, but I know it's not going to last long.
Keith Giffen always cracked me up because to me, some of the stuff he did was a little bit obvious. For example, there's a DC Comics Presents that they did with the Creeper and Superman. I think it was a Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. It's like, it looked like it took him 20 minutes to do the whole book. It was big panels, simple lines that were real thick. But then you go over to like his Ambush Bug, and he'd have pages where he was like doing a Gil Kane style and a Kirby style, and his
Ambush Bug I loved when it came out. I haven't read it since then, but I loved that when it first came out in the early '80s. That was good stuff. Where he'd just like be making fun of his bit on Ace the Bat Hound was just hysterical, and they just had some good stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the rip this, and there was jokes in there that you had to like been collecting comics in the '60s at the time that I didn't get until I was older. So the rereadability for me was there,
Sleepy Reader says now Giffen looks like Kirby again. Yeah, I actually read some Giffen. I think it was New 52 Giffen I read on OMAC.
OMAC, yeah.
That was a solid book. I remember enjoying that one.
Yeah, OMAC, it felt like it felt like I was reading a Marvel comic from 1972. I still have those. I kept those issues, and I've got the issue where it crossed over with Frankenstein. Activate. I mean, I was skeptical. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's Giffen, so it's not going to suck too hard. Is what I thought. Right. And then I fell in love with the book. I mean, I felt like an old, and Dan Didio was an old Marvel fan.
Giffen was most recently on the Inferior 5, which was just that's like my friend Rob said. If it's a Giffen book, it's gonna be canceled pretty quickly for some reason.
Matter Eater Lad, yeah, I'm like those names, man. I always looked at the Legion as a romantic. They would.
Here's the question: could Matter Eater Lad eat radioactive waste and it stops being radioactive?
Yeah, he did. I don't know if it stopped being radioactive, but I remember he saved the Legion or something one time in an old Silver Age story where he ate the radioactivity material. I mean, we're going on a memory from like 83 or 84. But
I remember a couple of things where he saved the day by eating whatever was dangerous to
Actually,
them.
I think on his planet, normal food was radioactive, which is why they started eating other things. So maybe not. Maybe I'm kind of.
He can get rid of radioactive waste if that's the case.
I swear it seems like he did, but maybe the radioactive stuff is from his origin or something that I remember him. But I was going to say the Legion, the way I kind of defend the Silver Age Legion and some of the stuff they do is like, it's like us hearing stories of Robin Hood and King Arthur over 1,000 years. This era got romanticized. So everybody had to have a girl, boy, or lad or lass at the end of their name because they think that's how all superheroes were.
Yeah, the first Legion I read was the Paul Levitt's Giffen stuff. That was the Great Darkness saga. That was good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've turned a few people onto that also, and I heard about it for years before I actually got my hand on it. That's
I was able to buy that off the rack, but I barely even knew who Darkseid was at the time because I never read Kirby stuff at that time. Just little bits and pieces here.
Yeah.
It was Giffen's work in the 80s that drew him to Legion of Super. Yeah, that's the stuff we're talking about. That's when I first bought the Legion. I forget what issues it was. Right before 300, maybe.
Here we go. Somebody's looked up the Bismolians. This is Matter Eater Lad's race. Yeah, Bismolians can't eat any forms of radioactive or toxic materials. Their stomachs' acids sanitize almost any digested matter into healthy nutrients. And I think they're also the race, the planet where nobody wants to be in politics, so they get drafted.
That's funny too, because I always found that weird in the Legion. It's like you can't have overlapping powers in the Legion, but then they get these people who there's a whole planet full of them who have the powers. And it's always just because I guess that's their explanation for the powers. Well, it's our planet. Everybody has them. I was like, we can't have overlapping powers, but everybody in your planet has these powers, and everybody in the planet has these powers.
I'm putting my fingers at the top of the rabbit hole so I don't fall in. All right. But I mean, the rules they set up in with that Legion charter, they tried to stick by so hard that they ended up taking Lightning Lad's sister, having some horrible things that happened to her, but it's a Silver Age, so she was over it by the next panel. So her powers changed to where it was like she went from having lightning powers to where she make things light as a feather. Okay. And she went back and forth with her powers, and she always looked like Flo to me in the comics where I watched Alice. She had the beehive. Right. She and Night Girl had the best beehive haircuts.
Matthew Rasco has some interesting Giffen commissions here. My sister pranked me by getting 2 commissions done by Giffen of both Infectious Lass and Color Kid, posing as Playboy models. I had to hide those drawings in embarrassment after the prank.
What now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I think it was probably Giffen that did it, is that when it came to adding members to the Legion of Substitute Heroes, they'd go back to like Silver Age, Bronze Age rejected auditions, like characters that showed up in 1 or 2 panels they brought back. Arms Fall Off Boy and Tana Kid, who had ears that could just pick up all these radio waves, and they would bring them back. And Infectious Lad actually have her first appearance now that I'm thinking about it. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I mentioned it here or somewhere else recently. I was just sometimes the characters pop up in your head, and there was one character I always thought I was like, wow, I always thought was dumb when I was a kid, but as I've grown older, I'm like, that's a pretty cool power. It's from the Invaders, Light Lass. I think Light Lass is I can't remember. She was the one. Crusaders from the Invaders. She had power to appear like 3 meters from where she actually was.
Are you talking about Phantom Lady?
No. I can't remember her name. She's in the Invaders, the 1970s Invaders.
Okay.
On the team, the Crusaders. I can't remember what her name is.
Okay, well, let me slow down. You're talking about the Freedom Fighters Invaders unofficial crossover. The Crusaders were versions of
the Freedom Fighters.
Yeah. And
they always, all I remember is they always had to explain to you like a meter away is 3 feet or whatever it was. And it's like de facto invisibility.
Yeah.
Because you would think she was here, but so she could like be whacking people in the back of the head with bats all she wanted to. Ghost Girl, that's it, right? Ghost Girl.
Yeah,
I think was it. Now I can't remember. No, Ghost Girl was the one from Dark Horse Presents. Oh, jeez. I have to look at my Invaders trade.
That's okay. I got the Freedom Fighters issue here, but here's the Invaders one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll look it up if you want.
Look it up. What was her? Because I think she was from the cruise. They always explained her power. They always said because she was European, so she used meters, so it had to.
Oh crap! I got to get a new one. This one's ripped. I didn't know that.
I've got 3 out of the 4 volumes of that.
No, her name is Ghost Girl.
It is Ghost Girl. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Ghost Girl. There we go.
See if it's going to focus. If you can see it. That's a Frank Robbins. Yeah.
I always thought that was the dumbest thing in the world as a kid. But I've gotten older. I'm like, that would be a cool power. Yeah. But I think the problem is it's a very difficult power to represent visually.
Hey,
and I think that counts in comics.
Now, I can back you up on this. Okay. I can back you up on this. Go watch Escape from LA because Snake Plissken was able to use a little James Bond like gadget that gave him at the beginning of the movie you forgot about to stand off against the military. And he was really like way over here behind a tree. So when they all tried to shoot him and stuff, he just sat there and just looked at him. I got good Apollo here. After becoming Light Last, didn't her power still overlap with Starboy? Starboy made things heavy. Light Last made things light.
That's completely different.
and I know Apollo's sitting there probably like, I knew that. What am I doing? You know, I'm like,
Now, after he made them heavy, could he make them light again?
I don't know, man. He really. I just remember he was the murderer. He's the guy that got kicked out because he murdered somebody and he felt bad. You know, yeah. Because in that charter, in the rules, you don't go to jail, but you can't be in the Legion. You know, they would have their own trial. I think. You know,
that original Legion cover with them behind the desks with Superboy facing him is just a classic.
Yeah.
That's just a classic, that cover.
Well, I mean, it was perfect for kids at the time because, like, the reason they had these charters in my mind, because we did this when we were kids, like when I was 7, first, second grade, we would get the pallet boards and stuff that we could find, build a clubhouse that would fall apart within 2 months, and we had rules. We came up with our own set of rules, and that's
anytime the whole point of being a kid and forming a clubhouse is to keep other kids out. So you have to come up with rules to keep those other kids out. So that fit in just with the Legion really well.
Yeah. And
because there's no reason to form a clubhouse.
Yeah. And when you think about it now that we're older, you're supposed to grow out of that. And a lot of people don't, you know. We had things, but I think we built 2 or 3, and eventually we just settled for a tree. We found a flat spot in the woods, you know, and we had a tree, and that ended up, that little hole in the ground about as big as this house was our new, you know, the tree. We all came to the tree. That's where we all met. We got tired of building stuff that fell in on us and stuff, you know. I don't even know where we got the nails.
Is related to Matt O'Dare. Oh, is that when
I'm trying to think who Matt O'Dare is.
He's from that Star book you like so much. Oh, well,
Starman. Starman. The O'Dare family. Yeah.
Right. Because he was linking all that stuff together too.
Well, I wonder if. Well, now I'm gonna have to look this up, Matthew Ratzko, because the whole deal was one of the O'Dares was a reincarnation of Scalp Hunter from the Western book.
Right.
So I'm wondering if they're going to trying to say Starboy is a reincarnation. Yeah. You know what's going to happen is I'm going to go through my volumes of Starman. I want to find where that's at, and I want to kick myself like, oh man, I knew this. You know.
Is Animal Man by Morrison worth a read? I say no.
What?
Only because.
Hold on. We'll back up to Paulo here. Go ahead.
Only because when I attempted to read out, this is, you know, this is dumb. This is a dumb reason not to read Animal Man, but it's the reason I didn't read Animal Man. Was because it was the 90s. Animal Man was big. Everybody's recommended. I'm like, oh, I'm going to give Animal Man a read. So I picked up the issue, and it happened to be the issue where Morrison wrote himself in it. And he actually, he's like, oh, this is just a dumb comic. Why are you reading this dumb comic? And I went, why am I reading this dumb comic? And closed it, threw it down and never read Animal Man again.
See, I came from the other side of this on that one. You came in at the end. You missed the whole setup,
I know, but I was just like, the writer is asking me why I'm reading this dumb comic. It's not any good. I'm like, all right, I'll take your warning. Like,
no, I find humor in that. At the same time, I want to strangle you too. At the same time, I totally get it. I get what you're saying. Did you go back and read any of it?
No, never opened it again.
I came from the other side of this, right? I say what it is I think it's worth recommended reading because it won me over. It won me over.
My recommendation is only based on those 3 pages I read. So take that for what it's worth, which is not much.
You need to check off some of these stories and make a mental note and make a video on your channel of like a compilation of those little stories like that, those little bites, But Animal Man won me over because when I saw the advertisement, first of all, I was an Animal Man fan. I mean,
right.
Because of Gil Kane and Marv Wolfman doing this Action Comics 2-part story with the Forgotten Heroes, and anyway. So when I see Grant Morrison and I find out he's from England, I'm like, oh, they're trying to get another Alan Moore. My whole deal was, and now I have 2 boxes of Grant Morrison comics over here. Okay, now, but I'm like a teenager. I might have been a freshman, sophomore in school, and I'm like, oh, they're trying to get another Alan Moore. I ran across Animal Man somewhere in a dollar bin, gave it a chance, and was able to collect everything around issue 30. Morrison had left the book 4 months before, and I get them all, and I read this, and I'm like, this is amazing. It won me over. And the part that you're talking about, Alan Moore was bitter because he realized that I'm writing a character that you're immortal, man. You're immortal, Animal Man. I want to grow old, and my cat died, and I want my cat back. And you want your family back because I killed him. And then it had like this Great Gatsby ending where he's standing on a lake. He's looking at a lake, talking about missing his cat. And as he walks away, you see a light come on it over across a lake. That's how Great Gatsby ends. And that's not
how Great Gatsby ends, but that's in Great Gatsby.
Yeah. I haven't read Great Gatsby since 2000, but I read it the first time. What was funny is I read Great Gatsby because of school right before I got to read the Animal Man stuff, and I was like, that's weird. Yeah.
I read Great Gatsby just a couple of years ago again and enjoyed. I actually never read it in school and didn't read it till I think that I was in my 20s or something. I may have read This Side of Paradise in school, which I like. So I never read Gatsby till I was an adult and enjoyed it. And I actually like the Great Gatsby movies too, which aren't great movies, but to me, like the Great Gatsby himself, the character in the books, was sort of this glorious disaster. And that the movies are also glorious disasters somehow appeals to me. Yeah. It's Morrison. To me, Morrison has a lot of good parts, good bits, but not good stories. And he's the master of the first issue, but he doesn't have endings.
Well, I'm going to segue there. Grant, when I read Great Gatsby the first time, I knew it was trying to say something. I just didn't know what. Right. But I read it the second time, and it was for extra credit. Like I was just, whatever. But I was that kid every now and then. But besides being bored every now and then, I'd be like, yeah, I'll do this. But when it comes to Morrison, I agree with Sleepy Reader here. He really explores he experiments with his storytelling. Like he came out with like Sea Guy and We Three, where he was telling 3-issue stories, and he wanted to see how much story he could get in the simplest form. He gets All-Star Superman, and he wants to do the retelling of Superman's origin with as less words as possible in one page. I mean, I
bought volume 2 of All-Star Superman and thought it was awful. I was like, I can't believe I bought this and read this. Oh, this is awful. It's still on my shelf. I walk past it every now and then and go, oh, God, why do I have that on my shelf? Frank Quitely art.
Well, All-Star Superman had great moments. I think as a huge story, if you try to read it at once, like it's supposed to be one big long story, it's a mess.
I found when people call stories manipulative, that's what I found All-Star Superman to be. All-Star Superman totally depended on you already having an emotional connection to Superman. And then he was just exploiting that emotional connection you already have to Superman, which I guess is what a lot of these stories do. But he just seemed to me to be so blatant about it in All-Star Superman that I was just like, stop manipulating me, you.
Well, it's to me. I think it's nice that there's still a writer out there that has talent that can manipulate your emotions. You know what I mean? Like he still has that
Shake
power.
harder, boy, shake harder. That was me, the old man shaking my fist at Grant Morrison.
To me, that All-Star Superman, you got me thinking about it. It was actually 8 separate stories with a one little subplot going through it, knowing he was going to die at the end.
My favorite little Grant Morrison bit that I still remember all these years later, I think it was the first Grant Morrison thing I read. My friend Rob lent it to me again. It was when he was writing. Oh, what was that? All of a sudden, the Doom Patrol, was it? Was he writing the Doom Patrol early on in his career? That's what
people were talking about Doom Patrol, so I was going to try to get in there. The Dada, he brought in philosophy and he brought in the sex men. The Doom Patrol, the Candlemaker. I love that. And this is what the TV show is pulling from.
Oh, okay. And I just loved that. I can't remember who it was, but the person had every superpower possible until you thought about it.
Oh, wait a minute.
And so people who were fighting this guy would say flight, and then they'd fall to the ground. Super strength, and then they have to drop whatever that was just, and visually that worked so well.
Yeah, his run of Doom Patrol is fantastic, but I really don't think he does a lot of setting up, and then all of a sudden when you get into the 30s, he started like on issue 19 or something. He when he gets into the 30s in there, it's the proper Doom Patrol. He spent so much time setting up.
Sleepy Reader loves All-Star Superman, by the way. He says it's great, and I'm wrong. Which I if you like that sort of thing, it just annoyed me to no end.
I have the cartoon they made of it, and I hate that they didn't do the Bizarro stuff in it, but it's good stuff. It threw back to a lot of the Silver Age stuff. I mean, Hercules, Atlas pop up trying to get Lois. Lois Lois thinks that Superman's trying to kill her, and he's actually giving her powers. He just took he did the same thing on Batman. He just studied a lot of Silver Age stories and updated them. But the Doom Patrol, Larassa's never read it. He spends a couple months setting up his Doom Patrol, that by the time that they run to Paris to help the Justice League, because there's a picture that's going to eat Paris, that they look so freaking bizarre standing beside of the Justice League that you're like, this is Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol.
This just reminded me of something of Grant Morrison that I liked. I originally picked this up just for its cover, because it's got Batman on a motorcycle, right? This Batman Incorporated. And this had gotten a little bit of press when it came out. Some people liked it, some people don't. But I picked it up and I was like, nobody said how funny this is. Mm-hmm. This book is funny.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is. It's Grant Morrison digging through DC's Silver Age Batman and just doing weird riffs on it.
Yeah, that's why I like
it. But I think a lot of people took it seriously. That's what it is. A lot of people took it seriously. And I was like, nobody notices he's making constant Silver Age jokes in this?
because the people reading the book never read Silver Age. You know what I mean? There was people reading it who got it, but there's the audience never. I'm trying to think what the Black Hand story, the Black Glove story, where he brought in all the new Batman, like Knight and Squire. I can't remember what they were called, the Club of Batman or something. I recognize that because I read the freaking reprint in one of those giant Batman volumes when I was a kid, and I'm like, he's doing it. He's really doing it. I was getting all excited, like he's pulling this off. I didn't think anybody could have pulled it off, and he did it. Next thing you know, you got Knight and Squire in a miniseries, and they're popping up everywhere. He's got them listening to the Sex Pistols while he's fighting crime in his helmet. I'm like,
there's just so much goofy stuff in this series. Just so much goofy Silver Age stuff. And it's just like, it's entertaining as hell, but I'm like, does no one get that this whole series is a joke?
he was bringing back that feeling of the Silver Age in it with that dark character. And then when he got to the, Oh man, oh my god, I keep going blank on this. But by the time that Batman, you find out Batman even had like a mental, a way to mentally protect himself, and we got Ra Assur or something like that. He went really dark. I can go on and on. He was hallucinating Batmite. He got dark with it, but he gave us some funny stuff. After reading this with Gore Vidal, the Doom Patrol, I can remember stories that I really like that Grant Morrison did, but he put so much stuff in there and did so much wild stuff that I can only remember certain arcs that really stand out to me. He did a version of the Marvel universe where Constantine and the Doom Patrol then were like, Marvelized as superheroes and stuff. He had Hellblazer in a superhero costume with a flaming pitchfork or something.
Like I said, I think he's got full. I think he's full of good ideas. He just doesn't have a ton of good stories.
Yeah. I want to touch on this right here, then I'll get off of it here. But he's talking about he didn't like Animal Man because of what Grant Morrison did to Bwana Beast. He made a black man Bwana Beast and stuff. And I can totally get being a fan of that character if you're from the Silver Age, but it's one of the few times that I think that change worked because he did it in story. He didn't just have change for change. He wrote a story about it. And it gave Bwana Beast a legacy, kind of like the Phantom that walks like men,
Well, I think it's funny how like doing something to some cherished character can just make you hate something. Even if you hate a story.
I got to hear. I have to hear the story. You got to have an actual story to do that. I think you have to do it in the book, not just bring a lot of it. That's funny. Wrong, man. That's funny. I just saw Sleeper Reader's comment to you. I think I met Richard Case. I think I have a couple books. I think he does little cons around here. I think he's from North Carolina. I've got a couple books signed by him on that Doom Patrol series.
I think I may have a piece of original art by him.
Yeah. Danny the Street. That was hilarious. Bat-Zu-Ra-A. That's it. Zorro in Arkham. There's a Batman from a different planet that had powers. In the Brave and Bold cartoon a couple years ago, they brought the Batman Zu-Ra-A in there. But in the book, Grant Morrison turned that to mean Zorro in Arkham. That was like a code word that clicked Batman's hallucinations to protect himself mentally or something. How do you guys feel about Inferior 5 and Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing run? I like Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing run.
I remember liking it, not as good as Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run, but I bought it up until a point, but I haven't read it since it came out. So I don't even if my opinion is over 10 years old, it doesn't really count for me anymore. So it's like I remember nothing about Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing run except I enjoyed it as it came out.
I remember I got a bunch of them sort of afterwards because this time Swamp Thing was in comic book shops, if I remember right. It wasn't on.
I still have it over on my shelf.
I think I'm only missing like 3 or 4 issues out of it now. But the way I remember reading it, it took him a little while, or maybe it was just me getting used to his style. But the way I remember it, it's like it took him an issue or two to really get on his feet. Then all of a sudden, he just got comfortable in the book. You know what I mean? You could feel it.
I remember. To me, it was always like Alan Moore was just A+. And it's tough to follow that.
Yeah.
And Rick Veitch followed it with a solid B+.
Yeah.
But you knew it was never going to be above a B+.
I don't know.
B+ is fine.
I don't know how anybody could have followed Alan Moore, to be honest.
Exactly.
At the time, you got to remember the time. Nobody had done what Alan Moore had done. You got to think of the talent pool out there. When everybody was trying to write like Chris Claremont with New Teens and stuff,
right.
X-Men, you had Alan Moore over here,
doing his own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to think of the time period.
Who took over after Veitch? A woman, I think it was.
It wasn't Nancy A. Collins came on, but there was somebody in between that, and you kind of got the feeling that they were just there to make it to issue 100.
Because I think I don't think I made it to issue 100. I think I stopped when Veitch did, or maybe a few issues after.
Okay, I'm not going to jump over here and dig through the boxes here. I've got it stacked over here somewhere. But yeah, somebody came on. I keep wanting to say Mike Carey, and I don't think that's not it.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was at all because I think I stopped. But it's funny. There's some things I remember, like I distinctly remembered what the issue that made me stop buying the X-Men was that Cool and Garth stuff around issue 191, 192. We've talked about that before.
Manhattan became Hyborian Age, guys.
Right. And then one year I went to check my X-Men collection out, and I have up till issue 200. And I went, wow, I have no memory of the issues between. I must have just bought them because I wanted to buy to issue 200 before I stopped.
Yeah, you're taking me back. One of my favorite issues at the time was one where you think Dr. Doom is appearing, and it turns out to be Arcade. And I didn't realize I was an Arcade fan. I was young, man. I was young.
I liked Arcade. He was just goofy, putting you in giant pinball machines. That was fun stuff.
Well, now that I'm looking at him as I'm older, he's got that big white suit on with the tie, the bell bottoms. This is the 80s, and they kept him with the 70s whoosh to the side and the bell bottom.
Carnival Barker look.
Yeah, and it's the 80s by this time. I'm a kid, and that stuff does throw you off when you're a teenager. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're like, oh, God. You know, you are petty like that when you're a teenager. Matthew Rasco, just to be even-handed here, not have a one-sided conversation, he just wished the story wasn't rushed out fast and speedily. You know, I get what he's saying. Like I said, it's got to be done in story, and I think that's good. But yeah, it was a one-issue thing where they did a one-issue story changeable on a beast. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, let me show you these two. I got 3 books here real quick. We'll get past this stuff. Can you believe we've been on here almost an hour and a half already? Has it not flown by? Has it not? It has. Anyway, Tales of the Black Lantern. This is a Giffen cover. Here's what's funny. Of course, this was $1. It's a variant cover, but I never saw it, and I knew there was a Dave Gibbons variant cover out there. Now, here's what's wild about this in my head. I've always wanted to do a sketch where I have all these hands up like this, and every hand is holding one of the power swords from the 80s. He-Man, Thundercat, Black Star. So I may swipe this, you know.
I might have never bought the comic, but I have all the different color power rings from that were giveaways.
I have 2 sets. One was
near my lamp.
I have 2 sets. Great Legends sent me one, and I hate that I can't think who the other a YouTube viewer sent me one.
I got, like I said, I'm a regular at the comic shop, so he always gives me freebies.
I got to get a Legion of Superheroes ring. You can find them for like $5 on eBay. Now here's something I've never found by P. Craig Russell. I never knew this existed.
I bought that one off my shelf. I've been wondering how to pronounce it all these years. Peleus and Melisande. That's as close as I get.
No, I've never heard of this. I'm doing a thing where I'm trying to pick up Eclipse books and Pacific Comics if I run across them. So P. Craig Russell and just the
that's one of
do it.
That's one of his opera adaptations.
Nice.
He's got in the 80s, and I think into that he did a whole series of opera adaptations that I bought all of over the years. So that one's in my collection.
And something I got to do research on here. This is Chuck Dixon and Tom Lyle. It's called Strike, but I actually think that the original Strike was a World War II hero from a comic book that's just fallen into obscurity. And they updated it in the 80s where this kid finds the power vest. My friends had this book, and I remember kind of flipping through it. And then all of a sudden, Charles Dixon became Chuck Dixon. And I knew who it was, and I've always wanted to go back and read it again.
Lifting the Tank reminds me of Steel the Indestructible Man for some reason. I don't know if they had a similar cover or not.
It's a patriot hero from World War II, so of course he's going to do it. But there's a little editorial I flipped through last night in the back that I didn't really finish, but I don't know if they're making a fake history or if this was an actual hero that, you know, that fell into the domain or something. I don't know if I believe it because nobody else has taken that character. He reminds me of General Glory from the Justice League run with Giffen in them, with his little bit of his costume design. But I'll be interested in reading it, man. Chuck Dixon, somebody needs to get him writing more comics. You know, what we got here? The Vitch run had the best crossover between Angel and the Ape, Congo Bill, and Solivar versus Mazur McCall, Gorilla Boss, and Grodd with a hypnotized Swamp Thing. If I'm remembering right, that was an annual.
I remember none of that.
There was an annual that came out with an Art Adams cover of Congo Bill standing there, and it's got whoever the Bill guy. It looks like he's ate him because his clothes all around him, kind of hanging out of his mouth. His hat's on the ground.
What years were the Rick Veitch run? That had to be like 82, 83, 84, around there.
No, later 80s.
No wonder I don't remember it.
Later 80s, probably.
Later 80s?
Yeah, I'm thinking 87 to 89.
Okay.
Maybe off the top of my head.
I don't think it was that late because I think I wasn't buying anything.
No, I'm pretty sure.
I'm just thinking I wasn't buying much Marvel and DC that late.
That app that I use, it gives you the cover date these books came out.
Okay.
So I can look them right up.
Look them right up.
Usually I know some of that stuff off the top.
Like Swamp Thing 90. I think that's around where Veitch stopped, right?
I think so, around there. He was in the middle of a time travel story.
Right. Where they were supposed to go back in time and meet Jesus. Imagine that the DC didn't go for it. Sometimes I wonder about these writers. You can sneak stuff in here and there, but Warner Brothers in the early 80s.
Okay, apparently number 90 is one of the books I'm missing. I have 89. I have like all of the 80s, and then I have 91 to like 100. But February 1990 is probably the cover date for issue 92. 91, January 1990. So late 89, early 90.
Maybe I stopped earlier than that. I'm going to see what issues I have.
Hold on. Let me see when Veitch took over here.
Oh, there's my Swamp Things right there. Hold on. I can see him.
Yeah, Rick Veitch took over in 1987. And it looks like, yeah. Yeah, and here's why I remember. This is why I knew it was the late 80s. In the back of my head, there was a Swamp Thing issue number 84 that the Sandman, Neil Gaiman's Sandman, appeared in. Sandman had only been around like a year at that time, or less than a year, and Matthew Cable ended up becoming Matthew the Raven. Cable was Abigail's husband, who was in a coma for like 5 years in the comic or in real life.
I went all the way up to issue 99. I didn't even realize that. Why didn't I go to 100? What made me?
Because that's 1990. It's not the best stuff. I mean, I have friends that like it, but it was not the best stuff.
Wheeler, Broderick, and Alcala.
Yeah.
Not a bad art team, but Doug Wheeler. I don't even remember. Didn't he write some of that robot stuff in the indie column? I can't remember where I know that name from. Doug Wheeler. He may have written like Macross. Oh my God, it's still in the original 1990 bag too. I never changed this one out.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding out with my books. I'm like, oh my, But Doug Wheeler came on. He's just a name that I know as a comic book writer. I don't think he's ever wrote a grand opus or anything. That's. I'm trying
to think of. I like in the 80s. I remember he wrote some indie stuff with giant Japanese robots or something. I can't remember in the least. I may be completely wrong.
Good kaiju stuff. I mean, I'm down for some giant robots, some Shogun warriors, if you will.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was buying Swamp Thing all the way to 1990. That one I must have liked it to keep on, because I hardly had any Marvel or DC in my pull list at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things I'm finding out with this app that I'm doing is that you can pull up your books like key issues if you mark them, but it's also got this thing where it'll pull up the books by years. It'll have a file for books that came out in like every year, the year they actually came out. And it blows my mind what the most popular years were in my collection. The last couple years are very lacking. But, hold on. Release date by year.
I imagine mine is pretty consistent.
Well, 1986 so far, I'm not done with my collection. I have 351 books from 1986. And I'm going to say that I was probably buying anywhere between 5 and 10 books a month. And then my brother was buying his books. So we were reading anywhere between 15 and 20 books a month. You know what I'm saying? So I know a lot of these are back issue buys. 1985, 303 books. 1992, 301 books. 1991, 271 books. 87, 89, 93. So the big year, and then the big year, 2009, 243 books. And that's The Blackest Night when that came out. So it's real interesting to get this app and to
see you track your years.
Yeah. Yeah. And as
What's
the
app,
from 2010 up, those years are really falling down the list, you know.
What's the name of the app, by the way?
CLZ.
Okay. I've heard of that one. Right?
I'm happy with it. $15 once a year. That's why I kind of put it off. But I did a test run for a week trying to see what it would do. It's worth it. It's worth it.
I've got mine all in a FileMaker Pro document. So that's my database. I made it up in like 20 years ago and I'm still using it.
I've had 2 PDF files and they always end up corrupted. I don't know why. I don't know if it's something with the email in it to myself so I can transfer it, or I don't know. I've printed it out. I still have notebooks where I would track things, you know, by notebook over here. I still have crumpled up folded paper that I would carry to cons and stuff. And
I've never been a back issue buyer, so I just need my database to show me where things are in my collection. Tell me which room and which box or which shelf they're on. That's why I need a database.
Well, here's one of the books. Yeah, here's one of the notebooks that we're talking about it that I keep. I was tracking my comics in and stuff. And I don't know when this was written. Like, here's the Baxter series Teen Titans. So I'm digging through this stuff a couple weeks ago. And we covered the name up, but the girl I was dating in 2016 had written me a note. And the first line is, I wonder how long it will take you to find this. 2020 took till 2020. Sorry.
Wow. When did she write it on there?
She dated it 7/27/16.
Wow.
Now she may have showed me this and I just sort of forgot it, but no, I don't think so. So, you know, imagine finding that while you're flipping through things.
One of my friends once during I have all back there are my sketchbooks, and this is my I fill one of these up a year. These are what I keep doing. I draw all these little drawings in it, and this is what I take to make my big drawing. When I want to do a drawing, I go and look through here. Like I said, I fill maybe 8 pages a month with drawings, and it takes me a year to fill one up. Well, one day when one of my friends was over, she wrote in some of the back pages, like, draw a dolphin on this page or something. And it took me like months to find out that it was there until I got to that page.
All right. These are out of order.
Dr. Silver says, I do the same thing on an Excel file. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I don't know if we want to save this till later because, you know, I probably have to get off here in a little bit. But we want to talk about the Fantastic Four from 1979.
Yeah.
I mean, you down for it? Or?
I'm down for it. Let's talk about some Fantastic Four.
Okay. Well, this show, it's wild. We're talking about things on this show. And then when I start cataloging these comics, like, there it is. It magically appeared. If I had went looking for it, I wouldn't have found it. If we were sitting here talking and I was trying to reach back, paying attention to you, I never found it. And it just, like, there it was. But I finally found out that apparently I did get rid of, it might be in my boxes of comics to get rid of, but we talked about the Cosmic Goalie hockey player last week.
Guard. Yeah.
I'm proud to say it is not in my official Fantastic Four box. I've gotten rid of it. But did I wake you up? No. Okay. We have company. How about we save this to next week? I want to have to go here in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some Fantastic Four next week.
Yeah. I have responsibilities. I'm sorry. I don't live in Chaz. I have responsibilities. But I hate to knock it off here, but we got things to do. We're getting married in 2.5 weeks. So we're going to take care of some stuff this weekend. So. All
right. Pick out some cake and a band.
Oh, nah, not really. Oh, thanks, Beard. You ought to see this look I'm getting. Like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Thought we were friends, man. You know. All right. But thanks for everybody popping in here. I tell you what, man. Seriously, I mean, I'm not like, you know, shining anybody up or anything like that. But this comment section has got to be awesome. I'm dead serious, man. It juices me up. I mean, it gets me going.
Even when Sleepy Reader is telling me I'm wrong, I still appreciate it.
It's awesome, man. But Jared, good to see you, man. We'll try to do this next week. When do you go back to work this week? Yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday. If you want to do a show, we might throw it in there if you want. If you're home, I mean, I'll send you a message or something.
All right. Well, Wednesday night I do my drawing club from 6 to 8. Otherwise, I'm free. I think.
Okay, cool. We'll see what's one. All right, man. Well, thanks for popping in, everybody. Later.
Have a good one.